Right. So consumption is basically expenditure on all goods and services by the final users, which means that consumption is to satisfy current wants and needs, right? So in A2 economics, the consumption function is based on the Keynesian consumption function of 1883. So this is a consumption function that we'll be talking about. So in the previous video, we talked about what equilibrium income Y is. We talked about YD, that's a disposable income, and we also said that YD equals to Y minus TY, the tax revenue, plus Q, the transfer payments. So consumption is basically a function of YD. So this means that if your disposable income increases, your consumption will also increase. Let's say if the government's reduced the tax rates, right? So you have more money, you have more income to spend on goods and services because you will now be paying less to the government in the form of taxes. So if you have more income to spend on goods and services, the consumption increases, right? But there will be some form of consumption which is denoted by A and is called autonomous consumption. So this consumption is independent of income. Your income levels can be zero, but still you will spend you will still consume some. Now the question is why autonomous consumption exists. So this is to satisfy your bare necessities. That's healthcare, basic food and shelter. So that's why even when your income levels are zero, there will exist some form of consumption denoted by A. Now, or other examples could be that assume that suddenly there's a very cold weather and you need more warm clothes, more heating, more energy, right? So even though income has not really changed, you still will increase your consumption. You will purchase more warm clothes, more sweaters, more jackets. You will increase your consumption of the heaters and etc. etc. So that's why there will exist some form of autonomous consumption even when your income levels haven't changed. Now, the question is this: consumption that's a function of a disposable income. So to understand consumption as a function of disposable income, we need to know what marginal propensity to consume is. So this is denoted by B, and it's basically change in consumption upon change in disposable income. But the thing is that a household will not spend all of its income for consumption. They will save some of it, right? So marginal propensity to consume decides how much of the income will a household spend on goods and services. So B is between 0 and 1. So let's say if it's closer to 1, if it's 0.9, if it's 0.95, we say that the household is basically living a hand-to-mouth life. They are spending most of what they earn, right? And say if a household spends like, the B, marginal propensity to consume for a household is 0.3, 0.4, it means that they're saving most of their income and spending quite less of it. So B is your marginal propensity to consume, right? Which means that a dollar increase in income, a $1 increase in your income will lead to a less than $1 increase in consumption, right? So this means that C is basically a function of B times YD. This means that what portion, how much of the disposable income will a household spend on consumption. So we said that there's autonomous consumption, and then there's consumption based on the disposable income. That's BYD, right? So if we expand this, we get A plus B, and YD we said is Y minus TY plus Q. And if you open the bracket, we get A plus BY minus BTY plus BQ. So this here is our consumption function, the total consumption by a household in an economy, right? So now we'll sketch the consumption function against equilibrium income. Alright, so on the x-axis I have equilibrium income, on the y-axis I have consumption, and I said that C equals to A plus BY minus BTY plus PQ. Now, when y that equals to 0, C equals to A plus BQ. So you get your y-intercept, and let's say this will be somewhere over here. So I get the y-intercept, this is A plus BQ. To find the gradient, I differentiate the function with respect to y. So I differentiate this. And when I differentiate this, I'll get B minus BT. This becomes B1 minus T. So this becomes my gradient of the consumption function, B1 minus T. So I'll sketch the function, and the function in the sketch will look something like this. So, if there is a change in autonomous consumption or transfer payments, right, that's A and Q. So, a change in A and a change in Q will lead to parallel shifts, right? Complete parallel shifts upward or downwards depending on what the increase, what the change is, if it's an increase or a decrease. So, because this will be because A and Q are independent of income, but if the tax rate changes, so tax rates, average tax rate is part of the gradient. So a tax rate will a change in tax rate will lead to a clockwise or an anti-clockwise pivot. If the tax rates fall, this will be an anti-clockwise pivot. If the tax rates rise, this will be a clockwise pivot. However, if there is a change in MPC, that's the marginal propensity to consume, this will lead to unparalleled shifts. That is, if this will lead to unparalleled shifts. Now, if say B increases, right, so there will be a parallel shift first, and then there will be an anti-clockwise pivot. If B falls, if MPC falls, there will be a parallel shift downwards, and then there will be a clockwise pivot. So this is how you sketch your consumption function. So what causes changes in A, Q, T, and B? So a change in autonomous consumption can be due to a variety of reasons. Say if the population increases, right? So this means that your autonomous consumption will automatically rise, since there will be more people who will want to satisfy their bare necessities, right? So population increases. This causes an increase in autonomous consumption, leading to a rise in total consumption. Then changes in interest rates. Say interest rates fall. So when interest rates fall, it makes borrowing cheaper and saving unattractive, since you will not get a higher return on when you save in a bank, right? So this will result in an increase in autonomous consumption, and an increase in autonomous consumption means an increase in total consumption. So then there could be expectations. Now, what expectations am I talking about? Expectations could be inflationary expectations. So say the public is expecting the general price levels to rise, right? So if they're expecting the price levels to rise in the future, so and because they don't want the real value of their money, of their income to fall, they will buy more right now to avoid paying more in the future. So this will also result in an increase in autonomous consumption, right? And finally, say if you get wealthier, right? If gold prices rise and your net worth increases, so which means that you are now wealthier than before. This will automatically lead to a more autonomous consumption, leading to generally more total consumption. So this is the final reason why autonomous consumption rises. So, changes in marginal propensity to consume. The one reason is the wealth effect. If you get wealthier, this means that you no longer have to live a hand-to-mouth life, right? You can easily consume. So you no longer need to live a hand-to-mouth life. So that's one. You won't spend most of your income for consumption, right? You will start saving more for your future. The other reason could be changes in interest rates. So say if interest rates fall, the returns on savings fall. And when the returns on savings fall, this makes saving unattractive, which means there will be low savings, which means you will spend more of your income, right? So this will lead to a rise in the marginal propensity to consume, which increases consumption. And finally, let's talk about changes in transfer payments. So changes in transfer payments are basically because of economic conditions, in the economic conditions of a country. Say if the country is currently in a recession, right, which means that there's higher unemployment. There's higher unemployment, which means that government will react by giving out more employment benefits, which means that the transfer payments will rise. On the other hand, if an economy is going through a boom period, this means that there will be lower unemployment benefits by the government, lower student grants, lower unemployment benefits, causing a reduction in transfer payments. And lastly, changes in tax rates. So changes in tax rates are primarily because of changes in the fiscal policy, depending on what the economic objective of the government are. So changes in tax rates are primarily because of changes in fiscal policies. Because fiscal policy decides what the tax rate should be. And we'll discuss fiscal policies in the future in detail. So this is everything about consumption, how to sketch the consumption function, changes in the consumption function, and in the next video we'll talk about the investment function.